So the background with how this all came to be, how this predatory coach, Larry Nassar, came into the spotlight. So there was a tip to a journalist I believe she was at the Indy Star at the time, Maria Kwiatkowski. There's a tip to this woman.
And what is the Indy Star, by the way?
It's a newspaper. It's like the New York Times, but for Indianapolis.
Yep.
And so there's a tip to this woman, Maria Kwiatkowski, and she was looking into sexual assault in school districts, and she was trying to find out how systemic sexual assault happens. And she was tipped off about a USA Gymnastics predatory coach. Someone basically sent her an email. This was in the beginning of the documentary. And they're like, hey, if you're interested in sexual assault, go check out what USA Gymnastics is doing. And she found a file on a coach, William McCabe, that had multiple reports on him assaulting gymnasts, young female gymnasts, all the way back to, I believe, 1997, 1996. And there was one quote from the file that says, "This coach needs to be put in a cage before he rapes somebody."
Yeah.
This coach needs to be put in a cage before he rapes somebody. And USA Gymnastics did nothing. And the coach was kind of moved around.
Yeah.
Like Catholic priests. When I was reading about this, it reminded me of what happened with priests in the church. Yeah, like if you abused a kid, the first line of action was not to get to the root of the abuse and then penalize the priest who was getting sucked off by young boys, but rather just move them around to get continually sucked off as they move through different parishes and wreak havoc on kids' psyches. And so when I heard about the USA Gymnastic coaches being moved around, it kind of made me think about that whole systemic problem of when a sexual assault happens in the Catholic Church, you kind of get tossed into another church, almost like a piece. It's kind of like it's like a sexual assault Ponzi scheme where you're just like passing the assault around until finally all the chips, like someone's just like, this can't happen anymore. There's no more churches to put this guy. And they're like, well, I guess we'll have to report it now. And so it sounded like they were doing a similar thing where they were moving gymnastic coaches around these different gyms. And that was their response to
that's
a report where someone said this coach needs to be put in a cage before he rapes somebody.
Any other hopefully most other companies, if you receive that email and that goes to HR, like that's a huge issue, but it was just kind of buried here. And why is that happening? Why is it just buried? But the similarity between priests and these trainers or doctors is that they're both in positions of authority with access to children, which might be able to explain why the prevalence of assault in both of these organizations. So like Larry Nassar, he is a medical doctor with medical training, and he has access to a continuous stream of girls coming into his office. And when you have 8+ years of training, no one questions where you're going to touch. And, or at least maybe when you're younger, you question it even less. But when you have so much training, people kind of just trust you. And both priests and doctors seem to have that. But I mean, I guess we're just harping on these two now because of the metaphor, but both priests and doctors both have that access. And it seems that seems to be a theme, that if you have that access, something can boil up, in that situation. If
you were to make a formula to sexually assault young children and teenagers, it would be you have to get into a position of trust. So something like a gymnastics coach or a priest where people are seeking you out and you're a position of authority. And then you're also around kids all the time. And I feel like that's obvious right now. When you have those type of situations, you're going to have a higher percentage of people that are being abused just because of the combination of power, trust, and access. And so why do we wait for cases to be reported to do something? Why not actively check in with the kids in these positions and actively ask questions and just say things like, hey, Has anything weird been going on with like? Do you feel okay with Coach Nassar or Father Tom? And
right,
has he done this to you? Like, does he touch you anywhere that makes you feel uncomfortable, or does he do things that don't seem right all the time? Like, to actively go to the kids and say, you know, like,
continuous
it's
feedback,
a higher chance. Yeah, it's a higher chance with the power, trust, and access. You're gonna attract people naturally. Statistically, there's gonna be a certain percentage of people that want to abuse kids, and they'll gravitate towards those positions. So when those types of situations, you should have an active check-in where you're not just waiting for, okay, another case, like another kid got fucked, like now we gotta, you know, move this priest around. It's like, no, you have to check in with the actual people and take an active approach and asking them, what is the state of being? Like, how are they feeling on a day-to-day basis?